simplicity and focus. For all the craziness and all the noise, at the end of the day, your business may be complicated. And right now, during this crazy time we're in with COVID-19, it sure is hard selling into headwinds. The people who are really good at sales, they just haven't mastered the fundamentals like the two guys we just talked about, but they've simplified what they do. And they don't make crazy excuses because sales isn't really hard. You've got a solution, your prospect or your customer has a problem, you got to get together and see if what you have is a fit. So you got to target, you got to initiate contact, you have to have a good story, you need to ask good questions, you think through potential solutions, and you work the process and you fill your calendar with sales activity.
Hey everybody, I'm Ken Newhouse, and I'm going to welcome you to the Get Clients Now podcast, the show where high-growth consultants and professionals come to access the newest and most effective methods and systems for online marketing, advanced sales and persuasive communication strategies, and automated marketing funnels. And if you're wondering if the Get Clients Now podcast can help you get more high-value clients, enjoy more sales, build a massive tribe, and make more money, you're absolutely going to love this show.
Newhouse's work completely blows everything else that we've ever done with Google out of the water.
I have been looking for a way to grow my presence online, and what I've viewed from Newhouse's work was something that certainly is faster than anything I've seen before.
He says he's going to do something and he does it. He does it in the time frame that he says he's going to do it in. It's exciting when you talk about the results that you're going to get, and you can believe his word because he follows it up with action.
The Newhouse is direct, he's to the point, he tells you what's on his mind, and he backs his words up. From what I know now, from working with him, he's passionate about his work, and he backs it up 100%.
What I like best is you offer something that no one else has out there, which is a pretty comprehensive approach about marketing a system.
If somebody asks me, should they use Newhouse's team? Absolutely, because you're going to get the important information that you need very, very quickly.
On the internet, on the different marketing techniques, I've never experienced anything like this.
I would definitely recommend Ken Newhouse for someone who's serious about growing their business. I think that your results based on the numbers would at least double the sales in a very short time frame.
Hey everybody, Ken Newhouse here from kennewhouse.com, and I want to welcome you back to the Get Clients Now podcast, where the one-size-fits-all marketing model is dumb, the client-centric business model is king, and leading experts share strategies and methods that you can use to accelerate brand acceptance, skyrocket your significance in the marketplace, and elevate your status so you can build your tribe with certainty. Today's episode number 357 of the Get Clients Now podcast, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking with Mike Weinberg. Mike's one of America's leading sales training and consulting experts. Mike has also authored 3 best-selling books on sales, and his most recent book, Sales Truth, and the topic of selling in the heart of the COVID-19 crisis is going to be at the center of what we discuss on today's show. Now, if you're like me and if you're like my most successful clients and members, you recognize the seriousness of the crisis that we're all dealing with right now, but you're also probably getting a bit tired of all the ads, videos, and blog posts touting the so-called COVID-19 sales and marketing secrets that we're finding online that are inundating our social media platforms online. Listen, make no mistake about it. Mike Weinberg is one of the world's leading sales experts, but as you're about to hear on today's interview, he understands that this is a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. He understands that we're in uncharted territory right now, and that no one, absolutely no one, has figured this thing out completely. And so while generating leads seems to be getting easier for a lot of us, actually being able to convert those leads into prospects, people that you can get in front of you where you can make your sales presentation, is in most cases more difficult than it's ever been. Now, having said that, in spite of the enormous challenges that you're facing, there are in fact steps you can take to make your sales strategy more effective, drive sales, and keep your company above water. You know, Mike's book, Sales Truth, was released back in September of 2019, and that was several months before the Chinese coronavirus began its devastating charge around the globe. And yet, ironically, Mike's book is filled with practical advice that's helping people sell right now in the heart of this pandemic. Mike's book also identifies much of the garbage online being heralded as COVID-19 sales and marketing secrets, and he shows you why most of this information online is not only untrue, but how it can actually accelerate business failure for those unlucky or unwise enough to actually believe it and act on it. You know, I gotta be frank here. Most of the so-called sales gurus posting this garbage online have never built a successful company or sold anything of value, quote unquote, in the trenches. They may have sold some things before, but I'm talking about built a company around selling high value, high dollar products and services. Truth be told, a lot of these guys are sitting in their parents' basement posting videos and writing blog posts about how, the quote unquote new sales methods have replaced sound proven sales fundamentals, which virtually across the board is a joke. And so those of us working in the trenches, those of us who know what's working and what's not working right now before the pandemic hit and what's going to be working long after the effects of this pandemic have passed, see these jokers for what they are, the Barney Fifes of selling.
On your mark, get set.
Well, I gotta get back on the job. It's a jungle out there. I gotta hunt them down.
What are you doing? Barney at ease. Will you relax?
All I'm saying is that there are some things beyond the ken of mortal man that shouldn't be tampered with. We don't know everything, Andy. I was reading an article about him in one of the magazines. Kleptomaniacs, they call them. One way to take care of it. Nip it. In the bud.
Listen, whether you're working really hard to target and attract qualified leads into your business, create new sales opportunities, or maximize results while navigating this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, or whether you're selling during quote-unquote normal good times, the basics remain the basics. Said differently, the very same best practices that drive sales success when you're not dealing with a bizarre virus and you're not having to deal with a forced government shutdown, a lockdown of you and your business, are the ones you need to master to succeed now, right now, during the heart of this crisis, and to set yourself up to absolutely rocket fuel your results for the coming recovery. And yes, the recovery will come. It will come eventually, and my prayer, my hope for you is that you can weather the storm and make it through. All right, let me quickly run through Mike's bio, and once I've done that, we're going to go and welcome him in on the show. Mike Weinberg is a consultant, coach, speaker, and best-selling author of 3 Amazon #1 bestsellers on sales, sales training, and sales management. Mike's on a mission to simplify sales, create high-performance sales teams, and help companies, sales leaders, and salespeople win more new sales. Blunt, powerful, practical sales and management help. He's the author of, first, the book we're going to be covering today, Sales Truth, Debunk the Myths, Apply Powerful Principles, Win More New Sales. He also wrote Sales Management Simplified, The Straight Truth About Getting Exceptional Results from Your Sales Team, which is being called arguably the best book that's ever been written on sales management and an unequal blueprint for both leading salespeople and building high-performance sales teams. And my other co-favorite is New Sales Simplified, the essential handbook for prospecting and new business development, named the #3 most highly rated sales book of all time. So with that, let's go ahead and bring Mike in on the show. And if you guys are ready, let's roll. Hey everybody, Ken Newhouse here, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Get Clients Now podcast. And with me today, I've got Mr. Mike Weinberg. He is a multiple-time best-selling author. So Mike, on behalf of myself and the members of the Get Clients Now Nation, I want to welcome you to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, Ken, thanks for having me. I love the title of your podcast and this deal. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And certainly thanks for the books you've written. I've read New Sales Simplified, and then Sales Truth is the one we're going to kind of focus on today. But I think really the New Sales Simplified really helped a lot for me. Guys, if you haven't read that book, obviously we're not going to dive into it too much on the show today, but that's another book that I'll recommend. And Mike, before we even get started, and I just started doing this recently, just because I feel like the quality of people that I've been inviting on the show warrants it, I'm going to guarantee your book. So guys, if you're a subscriber to my show, or if you're a member of the Get Clients Now Nation, you're going to buy Mike's book. You're going to put it into practice. Obviously, you just can't read it and then expect magic to happen. You actually have to take action. You have to work. But if you'll do that, your sales performance is going to radically improve. Your results are going to radically improve. And if you can't say that for any reason, and I know if you do what's in the book, that will happen. But if you can't say that for any reason, email me at customerservice@kennewhouse.com, and I will buy the book from you. Obviously, if it's a Kindle book or an audio book, that's not going to do me any good. I don't necessarily want the book. I just want you to know that I'm stoked with what I read in the book, and I don't take this lightly to put my name on the line like this, or the potential to lose a whole bunch of money. So the book is that good. I highly recommend it.
Hey, Ken, I'll tell you what, Ken, I like you so much in the way you said that. I'll double the offer. So anyone who writes to you for a refund, I'll match in cash the cost they paid for the book if they have send back the fact that it didn't work for them if they actually implemented the concepts, because they work every time they're implemented. So
they absolutely do. They absolutely do. So what I like to do, Mike, and we kind of talked about this before we started, is, I got a couple questions that I like to ask every guest, and that helps our listeners, members of the Get Clients Now Nation, get a really good feel for the guests that we have. And I think it really helps with the assimilation and the absorption, the understanding of the information we're going to cover. So if you could take a minute or two, share with us your backstory. Now, I don't know if people know this or not, and I didn't know it at first, but you live where I live. I live in Wildwood, and I live right out by Babbler Park. I'm not sure exactly what part of town you live in, but we're in the same city, essentially.
Yeah, we're both in West County, right? West County, St. Louis. So yeah,
yes.
we're neighbors, but I'm not from here. I'm from New York. And, when you're not from St. Louis, people who are from here never let you forget that. So that's always funny. I've been here almost 30 years, but I did grow up in New York. I'm a little less of a jerk, and I have a little bit less accent than I did when I moved here. And from a backstory perspective, what I'll just share is I never thought I'd be in sales. I was a business student. I was president of the business fraternity. I thought sales was some low-level thing. I didn't get it. And my dad was like a big-time New York City sales executive. And I'm like, I don't want that. And after stumbling and bumbling around in a job or two, I ended up having an opportunity to have an incredible job where I was being mentored by the CEO of a very fast-growing company who was also the chief salesperson. And going on sales calls with him to some of our biggest customers, I got to have my eyes open to the fact that sales isn't what I thought it was. You're not pulling something over on someone. You're not, doing a fast move. It's not about being a silver-tongued devil. It's about relationship. It's about consulting. It's about helping people. It's about solving problems. And I'm like, I like all those things. And then I started to learn that, people in sales have more freedom. They make more money. They're judged on their performance, not necessarily on politics, all that stuff. So it's absolutely been fun to be in sales and watch my career grow. I never expected to be in the position I'm in right now, where I get a chance to talk with you or, your audience about how to be more successful in selling. This was not my plan. I ended up being a top salesperson in a number of companies, and through a weird set of circumstances, ended up in consulting one time when I lost my job, and I really liked it. And then I went back and had a stint as a sales executive or two, and decided, I want to do this again. I love the chance to help lots of people sell more stuff. And that's my passion, really, is helping salespeople and sales teams win more new sales. And that's what I'm doing today.
Mike, you covered it in the book, and I'll just throw this out there right now, but I would say that the chances are, unless someone's a new listener, I would say that the majority of the members of the nation, they realize that, we're mostly B2B people, almost virtually B2B. And as a result of that, in addition to that, we're selling pretty high ticket items. I wouldn't say that we have a whole lot of people on here. As an example, you talk a lot about the things that are going on online as it relates to sales, and we'll dive into that in just a bit. But I don't think we have a lot of people listening, and hopefully if we do, they won't listen long. People that are selling $9 ebooks, or people who are selling, real low-end, low-quality products. And if you're selling low-end stuff, doesn't mean it's low quality. But my point is this. The whole idea of being a silver-tongued devil, I think people at this level understand that being, a slick talker or I'm a direct response copywriter, one of the things that I do, being really good at writing copy at this level with the high quality prospects we're dealing with and we're serving and we're helping really is going to flop most of the time, because you're dealing with a rather sophisticated market. And so if you try to approach these type of people, these prospects, and try to, pull the wool over their eyes or use sleazy sales tactics or the next hot new sales technique that we're going to talk about in just a minute that's really a bunch of nonsense most of the time, that's simply not going to work. But if you could, the other question I want to ask you, Mike, is, has there been a book, a circumstance, an individual? I know you mentioned your dad pushing you, and I know you mentioned that you had the opportunity to work with that one owner of the company, or the president of the company, who was also the head sales guy, which is just a phenomenal thing to have that happen as your first experience, your real training. Has there been anyone else that really motivated you or led you in this direction that you've taken now with being a sales trainer and just, a professional salesman?
Yeah, there's a handful of people, but I'll go back to my dad, because I brought him up earlier, and he was the reason I didn't want to go into sales, right? Because I didn't want to be like following in his footsteps. But at the end of the day, when I decided that it was time to do something different, and I had this opportunity with the company I was working with where I was being mentored by the owner and his assistant to move into sales. And that's what moved me to St. Louis. And I got to handle the Walmart business and do all kinds of crazy stuff. My dad sat me down and he said something to me that is so profound. And I shared it in Sales Truth. And I use it now in my workshops. He said, it's really important when you go into sales that your motivation is to make your customer as successful as possible. And then the line that I keep repeating that he taught me was, as long as your goal is to help the customer win, you're always going to win in sales. And that has such implications. And we'll talk about that from, a Get Clients Now perspective, right? When you're prospecting, how you see yourself, right? And my friend Anthony Iannarino, who's one of my very best friends, and I think maybe the smartest guy in the industry. He's got some phenomenal books, and he was gracious enough to write the foreword to Sales Truth, as well as one of my other books. He always says this: sales is not something that you do to somebody. It's something that you do with them for their benefit. And that's exactly what I learned from the CEO of that company I was mentoring and what my dad was trying to get into me. It's not about being a silver-tongued devil or slick talking or having tricks or techniques or closing. It's about bringing value and solving problems and how you see yourself as an expert, a problem solver, a consultant, and getting perceived that way by customers. That's where you really win. And that's why I was so excited to get into sales, because my view of it was wrong. I had a much lower and inappropriate view. And now it's my pleasure to remind salespeople how important we are, not just on the front lines of the economy, driving business and making the whole economic engine go.
Absolutely.
But that our companies depend on us, right? If we're the only ones that can drive revenue. So they're all their livelihood depends on us. So that's why I love sales. And that my dad telling me the goal is to help your customer win has been foundational in my success.
I think a lot of the people that listen to the show, Mike, that are members of the nation, we do have some that are professional salespeople, but by default, small business owners and professionals have to be skilled at sales. And so, if you're a business owner and you approach the sales process like in a sleazy fashion or using some of the nonsense that we see online today, that's going to destroy your reputation as a business owner and in the marketplace. And so I would hope, and I would think, certainly, Mike's coming from the perspective of working with dedicated sales professionals, but these truths nevertheless are going to apply to you and your business no less. They're going to apply just the same. Maybe some of the situations will be a little different, but the principles are foundational. And they work. They are time tested and they work. And so one last question I want to dive into, Mike, before we dive into the book, I want to ask you, what's the one thing that the majority of the people in the marketplace don't know about you, but you wish they did?
Wow. I guess there'd be a couple pieces to that. But the one thing would be that I was not natural at this. And while I've been a top producer in several companies and I love helping people sell, I really worked hard to learn the skills of being a salesperson. And there are some foundational books in my past, from Ron Carr's book, The Titan Principle, that's got to be 20 years old or more. And I still joke with him as a peer in the community that book was so influential. I have it on my shelf. The whole book's highlighted. To Art Subcheck, Smart Calling. To Mahan Khalsa, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. To Dave Curlin, who's one of my favorite sales gurus and expert, Baseline Selling. There's a book that doesn't get anywhere near the attention that it deserves. Those were some foundational people in my life before I met Anthony Iannarino and Jeb Blunt and Mark Hunter and a lot of the outbound guys and that I hang with now. And those people really inspired me. So my message to the sales community is, it takes work. And in chapter 15 in Sales Truth, I highlight the two best salespeople I've ever seen. One's B2C, one's B2B. And part of the reason I went so deep there highlighting them is because they're not like unique, special human beings. They have just really worked hard and they've mastered the fundamentals and they have no tricks and no shortcuts. And that's really who I see succeeding big time in sales today. People who are committed to the craft and invest in themselves.
Yeah, in any aspect of business. And that's one of the things that I learned a long time ago from Dan Kennedy, that good copywriting does two different things. Number one, it attracts the people that you want to attract well, but it also repels the people that you don't want. And one of the groups of people that I want to repel are people who are looking for like a get-rich-quick scam or some sort of magical sales solution or some sort of magical marketing solution. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. In fact, it's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work. And so I think most of the people who listen to the show, I know my clients, as a matter of fact, and our members, these are people who understand the value of hard work, not working for the sake of working, but working smart at something, but really putting yourself into it, creating something that you can be proud of, something you create a legacy for, your family can be proud of, your kids, your grandkids, all that stuff. So let's dive into the book. So as it relates to the book, one of the first things that I noticed right off the bat in Sales Truth is that you kind of had a bone to pick with some different people online, and you were good about not mentioning those people, which I have a lot of respect for. And that's one of the things I try to tell people: never badmouth. And I think you address this in the book as well, but never badmouth your competition ever, even in just casual conversation. And you're real good about that. And so you're practicing what you preach. But what's the one thing you're reading all, these hot new sales strategies, and they're really bad-mouthing the sales fundamentals that we all know and love, those of us that understand sales. What's the one thing about the stuff they said online, the positions they took, that really surprised you the most?
I love how you set that up, even before you got into the question, because I wrote the book because I was righteously pissed off by people preaching the get-rich-quick scheme, just with a different angle on it, right? In the sales world. I wrote the book and I called it Sales Truth on purpose because there's a lot of people preaching nouveau nonsense. And a lot of them don't even really have the credibility or the background to be writing to salespeople, but because they've created a big platform themselves and they like to evaluate the validity of what they're preaching by how many people like their posts, they think they know everything. So I wrote the book frankly because I was frustrated by what's passing off as sales advice today. And the thing that most surprises me, to answer your question very directly, is that these people have the audacity to tell us, and when I say us, I mean people like you and me that are in the business and have real clients and are day-to-day working with sales teams and salespeople. They have the audacity to go online and write nonsense that says, well, everything in sales has changed and nothing that used to work still works. And if you don't have today's tool, today's toy, today's new trick, then you're a fool. And if you dare pick up the phone and use traditional methods, you're going to get laughed at. We're going to make fun of you. You're going to fail and struggle. And yet I'm in company after company after company, from high tech to big data, to big trucks, to big defense, to distribution, across all kinds of sizes of companies and industries. And the salespeople I see really crushing it today are the ones who have mastered old school fundamentals. Sure, they mix in new technology and they blend in social selling and they're good at building their brand using inbound and all that stuff. But they're still doing the things that have always worked. They have a great story. They run great discovery meetings. They still take responsibility for filling their own funnel. And there's so much nonsense being written online by people, because the truth is there is no barrier to entry to be a sales thought leader, right? If you have an internet connection and a LinkedIn account, you can be a sales thought leader, blogging all day from your mom's basement. You could have no revenue and no clients, but you can become a sales expert and have a lot of people following you because you're preaching stupid stuff that they want to hear, but that doesn't make it true. So how's that for just to start getting wound up, right? Because there's a lot of dangerous things out there, and I took it on myself. I feel like I earned the right, and I had the platform to fight back without naming names, but to list real examples of the stupidity that's passed as sales advice today.
Yeah, I think a lot of these people know who they are as well. So, and you definitely have the platform to do that. So, Mike, right now, and depending on when people listen to this, it may be better. Hopefully it is better, somewhere down the road when people listen to this, go back and listen to this episode. But right now, we're dealing with the COVID-19 crisis. And there really are, we talk about selling, there really are business owners and companies in the marketplace that simply do not have the money to buy what it is we're selling. They'd love to. Maybe they're going to even go out of business. Who knows? And that's really sad and unfortunate. But assuming we're selling to people or we're dealing with people that actually do have the money, and yes, they're going to be a lot, I will say this correctly, if I can say this, they're going to be more tight-fisted with their money. They're going to be a lot more astute and careful how they invest their money and what they purchase for the company. But what's the one reason, if you can think of one thing, what's the biggest reason that you see people who are selling to people who actually have money? What's the biggest reason they're failing right now in the heart of our crisis? Not because the people don't have money, but to the people they're trying to sell to that do have money. What would you say is the biggest reason they're just not being successful right now? I'll
answer that in two parts. That's a great question. And, it's hard right now. We're We are selling into coronavirus pandemic headwinds. And there ain't no playbook for selling a global pandemic. We're making it up on the fly. And part of the reason I've been so public and in my positivity and doing a lot of free sessions for salespeople and sales leaders is I'm trying to encourage their hearts, but also show them that there are a lot of people still having success, as hard as it is right now. But to answer your question, the salespeople who are struggling right now, even though they're selling to people that have the potential to buy, there's probably two components to it. One is lack of empathy and others focus. They're still coming across very self-absorbed in their approach and in their messaging. And instead of putting themselves in their clients' or prospect shoes and seeing the world through their eyes, they're still with their self-focused garbage messaging. We do this, we do that, we're the biggest, we've been around so long. Nobody wants to hear about you and your product and your history right now. People need help. So you better lead in your messaging with stuff that gets their attention, which is which of their issues are you going to address for them? Pains removed, problem solved. And what outcomes are you going to create, right? What new and better results can you deliver? How do you create value? So reason number one they're failing is they're totally disconnecting because their messaging is awful. It's not empathetic. It's not others focused. The second reason they're failing is because they're not proactively selling. And they're believing the lie that it's dirty to sell. And they read some idiot's article on LinkedIn. I read one of these the other day, trying to shame salespeople. How dare you sell during this crisis? You're tone deaf, you slime ball. Who do you think you are interrupting people during a crisis? Let me tell you something. The same moron that's writing that now is the exact same moron that wrote that during good times, telling you you shouldn't interrupt people, you shouldn't pick up the phone. There's nothing mutually exclusive about selling and serving and helping. And if your motivation is right, and you take my dad's approach, you're there to help the customer win, you're calling them, you're pursuing them because they're stuck, and you realize that they have some suboptimal situation and you can bring them more value, you're not a pest, you're not a slime ball, you're not immoral or inappropriate for reaching out to them, you're trying to help them. So it's the combination of bad messaging and wrong focus with lame effort or believing the lie that I can't help them now or it's wrong for me to pursue them. And I'm actually seeing the opposite. Some of my clients right now, they're calling into New York City, which you'd have to say was the hardest hit place in the world with this epidemic. And New Yorkers are the first people to tell you to go to hell, take a hike, get away from me. And what a lot of my clients are experiencing calling into New York is people are saying, thank you for caring enough to call me and see how I'm doing. I appreciate you doing your job. So think about that. You know, we're telling these lies to ourselves, like, they don't want me to call them and I'm scared. And then you call them and hey, thank you. And they're ending up having incredible dialogue. So that's the best coaching I could give right now for selling during this very unique time.
Well, Mike, it's just like when I was in practice as a chiropractor for 17 years, I had to sell. I had to work along for what's best for my patients at the time, and I had to serve them. But there is definitely selling that takes place when I give a recommended treatment plan, when I have to tell them, hey, this is what I believe is best for you. And obviously I'm going to get paid for it. And, we're going to be in fair exchange. And so for somebody, I just have a hard time understanding. And obviously don't understand these people, but how anyone could believe for a second, or even maybe it's just they're trying to generate money. I don't know why they would say that it's unethical or immoral to sell right now. They're coming from the perspective. The only thing that comes to mind when I hear that is that they're coming from the perspective that all salespeople are ripping people off. And so that makes me want to ask that person, who are you ripping off? If that's how you see every salesperson, who are you ripping off and taking advantage of? Because that's not the nature of all people.
No, Ken, that's beautiful. I would just encourage your nation here to go back and listen to that last minute of what Ken just shared, because that's the truth. And that's part of why I wrote those middle chapters of Sales Truth, because I'm going to call them charlatans. You know how they're ripping people off? Because they created a social selling training company, or they're an inbound marketing reseller. They have an agenda. So when they put their sales information out there, they're trying to tell you that traditional old school methods don't work. You need my stuff. And they preach ridiculous things. And they tell you that Gary Vaynerchuk is your role model, or Kylie Jenner. So whether it's Gary dropping F-bombs from a stage in a video, or it's Kylie taking, half naked selfies of herself, there's a social selling training company that the guy who's their chief sales officer put out a post. And I talk about this in the book. And he said, Kylie Jenner didn't cold call her way to $1 billion in net worth. It was through her social media efforts. Can't you see that social selling leads to real sales? And while it sounds really good, and I'd like to tell you that putting a lot of stuff on Instagram and perfecting your LinkedIn profile will fill your funnel, you and I and your listeners know that's not true. And whether you sell, like my clients, pharmaceuticals, defense to the military, big data to other corporations, banking, consulting, printing, industrial supply. I don't know any of those people that are making a living right now because they're Instagram stars. That's a fallacy. So don't tell me that Gary Vee dropping F-bombs in a video is the model for a professional B2B salesperson. He's a marketing genius. I respect him. I like him. But don't copy what he's doing. Copy the people in your industry that are the top salespeople. And if you could show me the Gary Vaynerchuk or the Kylie Jenner in a B2B sales job, I'll eat my hat. And that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted to point out those ridiculous examples and go, no, the people I see, even in a SaaS software deal or my big technology client on the West Coast, their salespeople are getting deals because they pick up the phone and schedule meetings. And they build a relationship and they do good discovery. That's sales. So I'll yield there. I could go on for a long time.
Guys, you can't see it, but I have an infrared camera on my recording device here, and the heat waves, the heat signature coming off a mic right now are definitely heavy duty. But anyway, on a more serious note, Mike, I want to actually, you may have encountered a style of questioning like I'm about to go through right now, but due to the sake of time, I wanted to get these in. In one of the chapters in your book, it might have been chapter 7, I don't remember, you talk about the 7 powerful sales lessons from the 2016 presidential election. So what I want to do is I want to just read each one of your bullet points, and then I want you to take 30 to 60 seconds and give me whatever comes to mind.
Perfect. It's funny. I always keep that list in front of me because I can't remember the 7 in order. So I'm always prepared for that. So I'll give you maximum 30 seconds on what you bring up. Okay,
so I'm going to read the first one, and just as we go, we'll just rip through them. Okay, number 1 is people, your buyers, your prospects, act in their own self-interest, and your messaging matters.
Yeah. So let me take 30 seconds to set the stage. I have a chapter in here on the sales lessons from the 2016 presidential election, Trump against Hillary. And just for the record, so no one throws stones at me, I voted for myself. I could not vote for either of those people for a lot of reasons. Having said that, it's a book on how to help sales. And there were some really powerful lessons of how he won and why she lost, and they both contributed. So point number 1 is people act in their own self-interest. Your message matters. Hillary never got traction on a story. And her story was always about her. I'm with her. She's going to shatter the glass ceiling. I've got all this experience. And it didn't resonate. And Trump's message, as egotistical and crazy as he was, it was more about make America great. And he listed the issues that people had, whether it was fear of terrorism. And I'm not judging his heart here or telling you that he's good. I'm telling you what was the messaging. It was protection from terrorists, and let's get American manufacturing back, and let's win so much we're going to be tired of winning. And you compare that to her self-focused message, it was a non-event. Like, he blew her away.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up then, 15 seconds if you can. What's the application for us in light of what we're talking about today?
It's something I touched on a little bit earlier, and it's we need messaging that gets at the heart of what's on the mind of our prospects and our customers. What are their issues? What's keeping them up at night? What are they concerned about? What liabilities do they want to reduce? And what better results do they want to achieve? If you talk about that stuff, their defenses come down and they immediately want to talk with you. But if you talk about how great you are and your history and how big you are, it's not relevant. That's the takeaway.
That's a big turnoff. Okay, the second bullet point is ignore your long-term customers at your own peril.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton is the first major party nominee to not visit certain states. She did not step foot in the state of Wisconsin once she became the nominee. She lost Wisconsin by less than 1 percentage point. Okay? So my message there is, don't be a fool. I'm the first one to tell you, don't overserve your existing customers. Like, don't spend too much time with them because you got to go find new business, or go see the jerk customer that only gives you a little bit when you should have a lot. But she took that to an extreme. She lost Wisconsin. If she would have showed up one time at some airport hangar and said, thank you. You've been a reliably blue state since Ronald Reagan, and I need your vote. Don't take this for granted. Thank you. I care about you. Go vote for me. She might be president. But she ignored a lot of people in what was that trusty, Democratic blue wall that got blown up. And Some of it was because she wasn't likable, and some of it was because she didn't show enough effort.
Okay, and what's the application? Quickly, what's the application? And I'm not trying to
Don't ignore them. You got to keep in touch with your customers. People change. Don't take it for granted.
Okay, number 3, prospects and customers do not always tell the truth. Wow, that's a shocker.
Yeah, there was no polling that said Trump would win. And I tell the story in the book. I won't go too deep, but I live on a very conservative street, very pro-life, very conservative. And there's always Republican signs up and down the neighborhood. There was not one yard sign for Trump. But I know that 80% of the people on the street voted for him because they told me. And the application is, don't take the first answer from your customer. Sometimes you got to dig, and you don't necessarily have to believe what they're telling you. There are reasons they're not buying from you, or they will blow smoke screens at you. People were not proud to vote for Trump, a lot of them, but they did. And there's my lesson is just be careful what they tell you at first glance. You got to dig deeper. You got to do good discovery work.
Yeah, I'll just throw a plug out for the president. I mean, granted, there's a lot of stuff he said over the time, but I have to say he's one of the greatest presidents in American history. And I think a lot of your neighbors this time around will have a Trump sign in their front yard. I would hope. Anyway, if they don't, they don't. But
yeah. And it's funny. I stay, because it's so hard. This is such a divided world. I just stay away from the topic. But the lessons here were so powerful. So I love that we're talking about this.
And in all fairness, guys, first and foremost, one of the things you wrote in the book, I'll just say this quickly. I love the fact that you profess to be a follower of Christ. I'm a devout follower of Jesus Christ. I say that on the show. I don't preach, but my show is his show, and I'm a steward of the show, and so I want to make that clear. And I love the fact that you just really go out of your way to be a good ambassador for the Lord, because you don't bash other people, even if you disagree with them. Sometimes I wish I could say that about myself, but I do from time to time. If I get upset with something that a liberal has done or somebody who hates America, I'll make it known, but maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. So number 4, the deal is won before and after the big presentation, not in the boardroom or the convention center. Talk about that.
Yeah, but that's my favorite one of all of them. And here's the reality. The Democratic convention always beats the Republican convention. I'm not sure if it's because they got the Hollywood people that help them or they're just better at it, but that's always true. And in 2016, it was a blowout. The Republican convention came first. It was a disaster. I mean, it was the worst organized thing you've ever seen. Trump didn't care about details. Scott Baio was a guest speaker. I mean, nothing worked. Ted Cruz was pounding on Trump. There was no unity. It was a disaster. You would have fired the salespeople in charge of putting it on if that was a presentation. Hillary's convention was flawless, from her hair to the white suit to the confetti to the unification. It was unbelievable. At the end of the day, who won the deal? Somebody else. And the lesson is, you don't win the big deal with a client in the boardroom. You win it by all the hard work you do before and after the presentation. Don't think you're going to be lazy and because you're slick and you come across looking great, you're going to win it in that hour in the boardroom. It's the relationships you build and the discovery work you do on the front end, and then the follow-up you do to earn the business on the back end.
Yeah, people need to know that you actually care about them and that you're just not a stepping stone that they're being used for. So number 5 is, don't make false promises or name your product something it is not.
Yeah, Obamacare, I think, was part of what sunk Hillary. And I can say this with some personal vengeance because I was on Obamacare for about a year and a half before our Chamber of Commerce here in St. Louis allowed me to get my company on their plan. They called that thing the Affordable Care Act. Let me tell you something. As someone who was on it, paying $42,000 a year between premium and deductible, it wasn't affordable. And I make a lot of money, and I still stretched to have to make that happen, right? So the whole thing was a lie. You can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. Well, none of that was true. They just did it to sell it. And I'm telling you that Democrats paid the price for that after Obamacare. And that you saw it in the Congress, and then you saw it in this election. So just be careful about naming your product something or making promises that are so stupidly outlandish, because people remember that. And I'm telling you, it's an issue.
Yeah, people not only remember it, which destroys your opportunity in the future with that person for the rest of your time in business, but they also talk to other people in the industry, which can sink you faster than you realize. Okay, number 6, trashing your competitors' supporters will come back to haunt you.
This was probably Hillary's death knell. And I'm sure she would take it back now, but she was really proud when she said it. I'm sure some speechwriter thought it was the perfect thing to say when she said that half of Trump's supporters were a basket of deplorables. It's one thing to make fun of your competitor. It's another thing to stand up on a stage as the leader a future leader of the country and say 25% of Americans are deplorable. Like, that's a heck of a statement. There was no recovering. And a lot of people took that personally, whether you lived in flyover country or you were a person of faith, or you just felt like you were being made fun of by this elite woman. It didn't go over well. And I'm not saying that Trump was a nice person, and he was the Mr. Insult, the way he treated his primary competitors and the way he treated her. I'm not excusing any of his behavior. I'm saying that when she called half of his supporters deplorable, there was no taking that back. So in business, don't trash your competitors and their supporters, because there are people in the companies you're calling on that actually like your competitor. And if you embarrass them or make them feel stupid, it's not going to help enhance your relationship or help you get a deal.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least is don't count your chickens before they hatch. My saying is, the check hasn't cleared the bank, don't count your money. So go with that one.
And there are a lot of salespeople that like to do the happy dance and run around the company. I got this deal. And then they don't ever show up with the deal. And word got out right before the election. And I don't think this affected the outcome, but it's just a good lesson so you don't get embarrassed. Hillary was planning quite the fireworks celebration over the Hudson River off the Jacob Javits Convention Center. And it got out and it was in the paper. And in fact, one of the headlines, I forgot, which I think it was a New York Post, said, "This could explode on Hillary," right? Well, people kind of resented the fact that her celebration was so public and people knew what her victory night was going to look like before the victory. And I have seen salespeople embarrass themselves in front of their companies by bragging about deals that they thought they had that never came to fruition. So professionals don't pre-celebrate. You carry the ball over the goal line. And if you're a football fan, you know what I'm talking about. How many of these idiots try to hold the ball up and they drop it before they get in the end zone and then they don't score? You act like a professional, like you've been there before. Finish the job, get the deal signed, but get the ball over the goal line before you do something stupid.
One of the things that I just want to interject this real quick. One of the things that I'm an advocate, I just don't bend on this at all, is that I like to say over and over and over again, people probably get sick of it, is words have meanings. The word professional has a distinct meaning. If you're a business owner, if you're a professional salesperson, if you're a professional dentist, chiropractor, whatever you are, act like it. Look at professional athletes, multi-million-dollar contracts every year, and they still go out and take batting practice and fielding practice, and they still do their cardio and their running and everything else. You have to train, and that's one of the things you cover in the book. But I'm going to jump ahead now. So you said in the book that a compelling message increases. Well, actually, I want to jump back to this. I overlooked one. You said that the most valuable and successful salespeople, the most valuable and successful business owners, they don't chase opportunities, they actually create them. So what are 2 or 3 action steps that we can take as a professional salesperson or as a business owner who has to go out and drum up our own business? What are 2 or 3 action steps we can take to help create opportunities to sell?
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that point. That's the whole center part of the book. I think it got 7 chapters there. So many salespeople today, whether they're entrepreneurs, business owners, or salespeople, they sit on their butt in reactive mode, waiting for marketing to work or a customer to raise their hand so they could chase an opportunity that everybody knows about. What I'm sharing is the most valuable employees, most valuable sellers, they create, they don't just chase. So what does that look like? It looks like calendar management. It looks like strategic target selection. It looks like time blocking, and it looks like proactive initiation. So my advice is, if you're going to be a sales hunter and you're going to create, not just chase, that means you make the time to do it and you free yourself up from service activity. You make a really good list of growable customers and prospects that could buy from you, and that needs to drive your calendar. And then you get laser focused on not just your messaging, which we've talked about enough already, but your ability to create a meeting. And you don't just wait for someone to call you, you initiate contact. And yes, you use social tools, and yes, you use email, and yes, you use the phone, and you do everything you can to combine every tool available. You use every appropriate ethical means necessary to get a meeting. And if you do that, good things happen. So that's some coaching about opportunity creation, because most salespeople don't have trouble closing deals. If you look at their pipeline, or those of you that are watching this by video, I got my hands up like in the funnel, right? It's not that they can't get the bottom of the funnel to close. It's they're not putting enough stuff in the top of the funnel. So they're opportunity starved. They need more deals to work. And the way to get more deals to work is to take responsibility for creating them yourself, not waiting for a BDR or SDR to make you an appointment, or some inbound marketing lead, or the lead fairy to drop one in your mouth. You actually go out and make it happen.
The lead fairy. I'm still waiting for the lead fairy to show up. Is there any truth to the lead fairy? So
I wish the lead fairy existed.
So something that intrigued me, Mike, in the book is you talked about the bridge line. And so this was the phraseology, the way you put it was definitely new to me, but tell us about the bridge line, what it is and how we actually deploy it and why we would use it.
Yeah, this is part of the messaging, and it's foolproof. I'll be quick here. Most of us, when we message, we start out talking about our product or our company or our history. It's not helpful because that's self-focused. My strongest recommendation is we lead with those issues we address and those outcomes. But because that's not natural, right? If someone said, Mike, what do you do? And I said, oh, thanks for asking. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a consultant. I'm a coach. I've got incredible content on video for sales managers and salespeople. Lottie flip and da. That's 100% self-focused. It's all about me. So how do you pivot? Instead of talking about yourself, you use a bridge line. I'll give you an example. I work with a lot of manufacturing companies, right? So I'm going to plug in the type of company or the type of person and then use a line like this. Manufacturing companies look to my business when they're frustrated. Their salespeople live in reactive mode. They're looking to create a team of proactive sales hunters who keep the funnel full. They want to upgrade their people selling skills so they not only create a ton of opportunities, but they sell on value instead of price. You see what I did there? I bridged into the issues I address. They look to me when, or I help them with. So I could say senior sales executives look to me when, or I help sales leaders who are struggling to create a high performance culture, can't find the right talent, aren't sure they have the right people in the right job. Their compensation plans are creating complacency. And they look to me when they want to achieve result A, they're tired of problem B, they want outcome C. The bridge line, they come to us when, plug in the type of person or type of position. And then if you start your story like right there, whether it's an email, a voicemail, a phone call, a conversation, you bridge into the issues you address and the outcomes you achieve. It's foolproof. And then all of that's really unpacked well with examples in chapter 10 of Sales Truth.
Yeah, that was a really deep chapter. And obviously I just wanted to touch on that because that was verbiage that I think some people might not be familiar with, but that really helped me a lot. I really did appreciate that. So, you said in the book also that prospecting is not optional. And so in light of coronavirus, and I took prospecting, or at least the way I see prospecting is, and you may say it differently, I'm not sure, but prospecting to me is you're looking for new business opportunities. You're trying to create new business opportunities. So in light of coronavirus, all right, and assuming we're targeting people that actually do have money to spend, albeit they're going to be a little more tight-fisted or a lot more tight-fisted, a lot more cautious, what are some of the prospecting strategies? Obviously, phone is one. We have to do social distancing. Some of the places, you can't even go out of your house. What are some of the methods in addition to phone? And if you talk about phone, what are some of the strategies once you get a person on the phone for prospecting? You can just take a minute or so and talk about that.
Yeah, the only piece that's different when it comes to the initial prospecting in this environment we're in right now is the people who do pop-in prospecting in the industrial sales world can't do that now. But everything else is still available to us. Social tools, LinkedIn, email, telephone, those things are still there. And the key, like always, is to be other-centered and to have the right attitude and to actually put your butt in a chair and carve out an hour or two to do proactive outbound outreach. And the only thing I would suggest for tailoring your approach right now is to be a little more empathetic to the fact that your customers are in chaos. So instead of driving to the hoop like I normally coach as hard as you can to get the meeting, and even when they give you resistance, you're like, no, you got to visit with me anyway. You're going to get a ton of value from this conversation. And that's some language I regularly use when I'm coaching. I think in this environment, we tone that down just a touch and we say something like this that's a little more sensitive. Hey, Joe, I get that you probably have some chaos right now, and it might not be the best time to have this conversation, but I want to help you. And when you're ready, I'd love to talk with you about how we're helping our clients tackle problem A and achieve result B. So when you're ready, let's set something up. And if you want to schedule it now, that's great, but I'll circle back with you. And what you're doing there is you're being empathetic. You're dripping some value nuggets from your messaging using that bridge line we're helping them with. Problem A, achieve result B, etc. But you're also showing them that you care. You cared enough to call. you care enough to be sensitive to that now might not be the right time, and that you do want to circle back with them when they're ready. And there's a lot in there like that. There's good voice tone, there's good attitude, there's good empathy, and there's good messaging. That prospecting is not optional. If you're supposed to create opportunities, you need to reach out to people. And there's no excuse for not doing that.
So, Mike, we got 10 minutes left. I want to be quick with these last two questions, and then we're going to dive into how to buy your book and more about your company and how people can get in touch with you. But you talked in a later chapter in your book about these two people, two of your friends, two extraordinary sales professionals. One is B2C, one is B2B. And you gave some bullet points about some of the things that, some of the reasons why they are so effective, why they're so successful at selling. Can you run through some of those examples or bullet points just quickly of their attributes that help them? You talked about they work really hard. They are really competitive. They go the extra mile. And my question was, when you wrote they go the extra mile, that seems to be a line that a lot of salespeople tell their prospects, we go the extra mile. What does that mean, Mike, when you tell someone, in your estimation and your definition, talk about going the extra mile? What in the world does that mean? Because that's a line that a lot of people throw around. How do we use that appropriately?
I'm going to give you examples. You said a lot of the good stuff. It's the effort, it's the discipline, it's the professionalism. Here's what I want to tell everybody that's listening. I take no credit for these people's success. None of these two individuals I profiled are not my clients. Right? They were great before I met them. All right. And I don't influence them. I watch them. They're amazing people. One guy is the #1 car salesperson for Volvo in all of North America. Okay. He sold like 540 cars last year. Like, do the math. Okay. He sells like 5 times the cars of the average car salesperson. People in Sweden know his name. Like, he's that important to Volvo. The other guy is a longtime friend of mine in the financial services space. In the book, I call him Ron to protect his identity. What these two people had in common was so impressive was the drive, the work ethic, the professionalism, knowing the business. But if I could put some skin on what you were talking about, the extra mile, it was in the preparation. You said it earlier, Ken. You said professionals practice. They don't wing it. And I tell the story in the book, and I won't go into the details here, but about what Tom does to be ready for a customer coming to his dealership, and the way he arranges the cars on the lot, and how carefully he listens during discovery, because he has a theory that the first car he shows someone should be the one they buy. And he does incredible work on his off time to arrange cars in a certain way so that he can quickly get to the one he wants, and it's clean and it's optioned and it's got the colors and it's equipped the way that the customer he thinks wants it. So he does that on the front end. And Ron on the front end, I tell stories about, he's legendary for practicing and rehearsing before me. And this guy sells financial services to the largest companies in America, like the Fortune 50, like the Walgreens, right? And the biggest Exxons, and the name the biggest companies we got, they buy from him. Okay. And when his company has a big presentation coming, when they've made the finals for a big deal, he makes the entire team gather together an entire day before the meeting. They don't practice on the way from the airport to the meeting. They fly in the day before. They spend hours in a conference room. How are we going to introduce ourselves? How are we doing the agenda? What unique questions are we asking? How are we going to approach this particular stakeholder who we know has this concern about us? So what I do in that chapter is I unpack the beauty of the hard work of these people. And that's my favorite chapter in the book, because I think it strangely encourages all of us that you can be that top person. Neither of those people are ridiculously gifted. They're normal, except for their drive. Their drive is off the charts. And, right now we're watching the Michael Jordan, The Last Dance miniseries. Like, if you're not watching that or you haven't, go back and see it by the time this episode airs. The lessons of Michael Jordan. Yeah, he could fly through the air. God gifted him with incredible ability. And you may even think he was a jerk or a prima donna. That's great. You know what he did? He worked his tail off, and he made his teammates work their tails off. He did not settle for anything. And that's what I see in Ron and in Tom. And that's the extra mile. It was the work on the front end or the back end. So I could go on, but in fact, you can go to my website and you can grab that chapter free. It's one of the free downloads because it's so powerful. That chapter there's so much in there for you to learn.
Guys, if you can feel the emotion dripping in Mike's conversation, that is prolific throughout the book. It's just a really incredible book. It's one that I seriously recommend you invest in, and that's why I was willing to put my name on and guarantee it. Okay, Mike, last question. And then we'll dive into more about your business and stuff. What's the one question today that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Why have you been so successful in sales? And I'm not going to speak for me. I'm going to speak for all the successful salespeople. Simplicity and focus. For all the craziness and all the noise, at the end of the day, your business may be complicated. And right now, during this crazy time we're in with COVID-19, it sure is hard selling into headwinds. The people who are really good at sales, they just haven't mastered the fundamentals like the two guys we just talked about, but they've simplified what they do. And they don't make crazy excuses because sales isn't really hard. You've got a solution, your prospect or your customer has a problem, you got to get together and see if what you have is a fit. So you got to target, you got to initiate contact, you have to have a good story, you need to ask good questions, you think through potential solutions, and you work the process and you fill your calendar with sales activity. If you do those basic things, they work every time. And that's the thing I'd want to leave people with as a message. The truth is those simple concepts work every time they're implemented. It's whether you're willing to do the work and master the fundamentals. There are no shortcuts to sales success. And that's why I was so angry in the front of the book, making fun of the people that want to give you the easy button. If you just blog, if you just tweet, if you just do this great inbound, people are going to run to you with money in hand. No, they're not. And that's why I have so much business, because sales teams are sitting there going, that's not working. And that's why we have to take control and go create our own opportunities and master the fundamentals.
Okay, so just quickly, tell us about how we can buy your book. Is it just on Amazon, on major booksellers, or is it on your website as well? And then tell us about your...
I don't compete with Amazon. I don't want to do it. So yeah, go to Amazon. It's also other booksellers, but Amazon tends to be in stock. You got the 3 books, but I would love you to read Sales Truth because it's fresh and it's what I'm seeing right now that works. So you can buy the books there, and you can find me online at MikeWeinberg.com, WEINBERG, MikeWeinberg.com. And on social channels, it's Mike_Weinberg. Yeah, thanks for the great questions. This was fun.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to run. I'll talk to you soon, Mike.
All right. See you, brother. Thank you.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Our objective with this podcast is to help you and your business stand out in the marketplace by crystallizing your messaging, marketing, and communications. On behalf of the whole Ken Newhouse team, thanks for listening.